Many people in this room, including me, have had occasion in the past to make the case many times over that there is simply no basis in law or in fact for continuing MEK on the State Department's list of foreign terrorist organizations, and that there are many reasons, including MEK's close cooperation with the United States in exposing Iran's nuclear program, for removing MEK from that list. But events have a way of overtaking even the most urgent rhetoric and even the best framed legal and policy arguments. And events in the Middle East and North Africa in recent months and weeks have done precisely that. Authoritarian regimes have been toppled in Tunisia and in Egypt, and even the brutally repressive regime of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya has been shaken. And he's managed now to hang on to power only with the most blatantly brutal and repressive tactics, but his regime is actually fragile. And he's resorted to calling his opponents terrorists, which of course is precisely what the Iranian government has done in referring to MEK, and refer to MEK as terrorists. The regime in Iran is more brutal than Gaddafi's regime, and for 3 decades has been more systematically repressive. The numbers are actually staggering. More than 120,000 people have been executed, many more thousands have been tortured, but the world has been blocked for learning many of the details because the regime keeps a tight lid on news coming out of Iran. 2 years ago, the people of Iran took to the streets of Tehran and other cities to protest the results of a sham presidential election and to try to take advantage of a split in the regime. They were brutally put down, with hundreds killed, thousands arrested. Recently, following the events in Tunisia and Egypt, Iranians again took to the streets and demanded regime change. And they were talking about regime change, not just a shuffle. The removal not simply of Ahmadinejad, but the removal of Khamenei as well. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at that time expressed support for the thousands of protesters in Iran's capital and said the Obama administration supports the aspirations of the people who are in the streets. She also called attention to the hypocrisy of the Iranian regime, which praised the uprisings in Egypt and Tunisia, even as it suppressed opposition at home. It's time for us to get consistent in our message as well and to stop our contradictory policy regarding MEK, and it's within Secretary Clinton's power to do just that. At the direction of a court of At the direction of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, Secretary Clinton is now reconsidering the designation of MEK. From the history of that designation, it's clear that it was made initially in a misguided effort to open up a dialogue with the mullahs, and that effort has been a complete failure. It's also clear from that history that MEK was kept on the list in part out of fear that Iran would provide IEDs and other deadly devices to insurgents fighting and killing U.S. troops. And of course they've done that even as MEK has continued on the list. I can't stress too strongly that this is not a partisan issue. People across the political spectrum from both parties have concluded that the time has come to end that sad history. And it's particularly important now. The Iranian regime has been attacking MEK through its proxies in the United States and abroad, calling MEK a terrorist organization, denouncing even those who participated in symposiums like this one. No less an organization than FARS, the Iranian news agency, the Iranian press agency, has gone out of its way to attack those who have spoken up for changing the designation of MEK. I am, of course, proud to have been named in the FARS story, because to be criticized by FARS is a badge of honor. But I will be far prouder when the Secretary of State does what everybody believes here that she will do and hopes she will do and should do, and removes the terrorist designation from MEK. Because that would be consistent not only with the policy interests of the United States, but also with the ideals of the United States. That would have the effect, it would free the organization to rent satellite facilities to send broadcasts into Iran, undermining the authority of the mullahs. And it would have the effect as well of removing the pretext that the current government of Iraq has for not protecting the residents of Ashraf, who, as you know, are members of MEK and have been subjected to harassment and brutality that you just heard about from Judge Poe at the hands of Iranian agents, with the tacit approval and at times with the active encouragement of the Maliki government in Iraq. MEK's platform for Iran is a secular government run on democratic principles that's free of nuclear weapons. Thank you very much.
My name is Ted Poe. I'm a member of Congress from the state of Texas. I want to Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank all y'all for waiting, especially our distinguished panel up here. The House was voting on a measure, and we had to finish. But it's a great honor to be here today to celebrate the Iranian New Year, Nowruz, and I wish the people of Iran all the best on this wonderful and happy occasion. We hope to see great changes in the next year. And we celebrate Nowruz as the first day of spring, as the Arab Spring has dawned in the Middle East, with growing protests against the dictators of the world. In Iran, too, the democratic aspirations of the people have been manifested in recurring protests and uprisings since February the 14th. They are doing what people throughout history have done. Those people, those citizens of Iran, your friends, your neighbors, they are fighting for that human dignity and that spirit that is down in each of us, the right to be free and to determine their own destiny without the oppression of a dictator, Ahmadinejad, the little tyrant from the desert, as I like to call him. As the Iranian people's uprisings grow and expands, let us pay tribute to the prisoners of the resistance and the prisoners that are against the dictators ruling Iran, those good people in Camp Ashraf, 1,000 of whom are women. The Iranian regime is doing what it can to destroy the bastion of freedom in Ashraf through its proxies in Iraq. And the international community must ensure that the means of pressure and intimidation and inhumane restrictions on the people of Ashraf stops, and that the people in charge soon lift the abuse, the oppression, the intimidation. One problem that is facing our friends and your families and your neighbors in Ashraf are 210 loudspeakers that are constantly blasting into Camp Ashraf propaganda and hate. Since November, that number has increased. In November, it was 100. Now it's 212 loudspeakers blasting in propaganda and blasting in hate. It's time for the UNAMI team under the protections of the United States to be set up and permanently in Camp Ashraf to monitor the situation and ensure further violations don't occur against the human dignity. But to really help the Iranian opposition and secure a democratic future for Iran, the United States should remove the unjust obstacles it's placed in the path of the MEK. It's time, it's long past time for the State Department to remove MEK from the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. There are those in the House of Representatives and others who have asked the State Department to show us the evidence why the MEK should be on the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. And what I have seen and others have seen, they have not, the State Department, made their case to keep the MEK on the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. So unless the State Department shows us the evidence, something that they haven't said already, then the MEK should be removed from the list of foreign terrorist organizations, and it needs to be done sooner than later. You have a quite distinguished group of patriots up here on the panel to discuss the issues that we are all concerned about. But the main issue that predominates our concern here today, and really throughout the world, especially in North Africa and the Middle East, is the ability for people, all people, regardless of what they look like, regardless of what their political beliefs are, regardless of their religion, have the basic human right of freedom and liberty. It is a right that we all have throughout the world. And I commend you for being here, but I also commend those good folks in Camp Ashraf for not giving up. The resistance movement in Iran, the resistance movement in Camp Ashraf should know that there are people here in the United States who are concerned about what's taking place, that we are watching, and we are very concerned about the abuse that is taking place against the human spirit in both of those locations. But also, Mr. Ahmadinejad should know that we are watching him as well, and that a dictator that continues to oppress the people of a nation will not long endure as the head of any nation. So Happy New Year. I hope to see all y'all in Tehran this time next year. And that's just the way it is. Thank you very much.